What's going on, Reject Nation? Greg Alba here.
And John Humphrey here.
So we saw the movie Wonder Woman at a late showing last night.
You betcha.
And we're here today to finally talk about the film. And oh boy, was Rotten Tomatoes wrong. Easily the worst DC film.
Yeah, okay.
Woman, hero.
Women, what can they do?
What can they do? They do nothing.
Yeah, there's a reason women didn't fight in the war.
We're being sarcastic. This is easily the best DCEU film.
Far and away.
It's one of the best superhero films I think I've ever seen, actually. I would probably put it on the mantle with one of the best superhero films I've ever seen. This is a great origin tale. It's a wonderful origin tale of Wonder Woman, Diana Princess.
Diana Prince is what she's called in the Earth world.
I mean, my favorite thing about this film were its themes. Was the themes of heroism, hope, even its feminism themes. I thought were all fantastically played throughout this entire picture. For one, I walked out of this film going, I wish I was a woman. That was like the first feeling I had. Because when you're watching like the Amazonians kicking ass, you're like, oh man, I wish I was one of these chicks right here.
Yeah, you're like, wow, this is a whole island full of badasses.
Because while there's like some CGI infused in some of like the crazy stunts, a lot of it is just stunt women doing legit crazy ass stunts, leaning off of horses, all these crazy flips and wire effects. Beyond the cool action scenes, this was that rare superhero film, which is, it's weird to say because a lot of superhero films touch on these themes, but rare is the day where I walk away with the feeling of inspired to want to be a hero more than just have superpowers. I felt like I want to be a hero and have faith in humanity and hope and the belief.
You don't leave with all the cool junk. You leave with the aspirations. Yeah, it's about what you believe in.
I want to be a better person.
Take the opportunity to help and to do what is right.
Because the story of Wonder Woman is, she's at this crossroads in life. She comes from this land of Themyscira with the Amazon warrior women who want nothing to do with the outside world, what's going on, because this takes place
with the world of man.
This takes place during World War I, and Wonder Woman, Diana Prince, is the only one who wants to, leave Themyscira and go help out and fight against the war and help out mankind. I love that touch of it because the odds are stacked against her in terms of she doesn't really have the backing of her family. And then she goes out into the real world where she's just kind of looked at as being a little strange and offbeat and weird.
Yeah, I mean, she goes out into a situation that she doesn't really understand, and that's part of what's so great about this is the movie really lets her learn, throughout. She goes in with this very simple mission of like, I'm gonna stop Ares and the war's gonna be done.
Yeah.
The whole movie is kind of about her learning that that's not how this works.
Yeah. It's a people thing. That some people are good and some people are bad. And it's not about just stopping one thing that will prevent all evil.
Well, and that's part of what I think is terrific about this movie is the gray areas and the nuances, because a lot of people have complained about the DCEU not understanding the spirit and tone of its characters, and I thought they translated the themes of heroism and what heroism is made of really, really beautifully in this, really smoothly
Absolutely. In this. And, a lot of people were thinking that it might have been one of those, not a true feminist movie in terms of, some people thought like you'd walk out where men are bad and women are the only.
That's not what it's about.
But I mean, and feminism's about equality.
Feminism's about.
And while like early parts of the film kind of have you believing that it might be going down that path in terms of how the Amazon women sort of perceive what men are like, and a lot of that's kind of funny actually, but how they perceive all men to be like. The movie doesn't leave you with that impression at all. I don't walk away going, man, women are the best and men are just horrible people.
Well, and that's part of the important contrast is that, when Steve Trevor washes up on that beach, they're all like, no, we cannot be, this is bad, and Wonder Woman is the one person who's like, no, there's some good in this guy, like, he's not like all those other people who are shooting at you. It allows characters to make wrong decisions, which is important.
Because, the whole theme of it is hope and belief and man that instilled in you, that despite all the darkness that there is in the world, that honing in on your light is so important.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that because I felt that when I was watching the movie. It wasn't just told to me, I felt it. There were scenes that brought tears to my eyes, and kudos to the direction by Patty Jenkins in this film.
Yeah.
Because she struck a beautiful tone.
She did.
It was like a seamlessly beautiful tone where everything just blended well together. Like the first 10 minutes are rather serious because it's all set up. And then when they start to infuse humor, it builds the humor. It's like a little bit here, then a little more, then a little more, then a lot more, and then back into darkness, then a little more humor, then back into like it was so perfectly told in terms of its feeling. It's paced perfectly well.
This script and the way the movie moves, I really felt like they thought of it in terms of like, well, how would everybody react to the next set of circumstances instead of where does the plot need to go and how do they need to feel about that?
Yeah, and instead of having it be a kind of confusing, because when you go from Themyscira, which is a totally different looking world that you spend some good time with,
which I'm really pleased we did.
Then you hop into London during World War I, and then the battlefield in Germany, all these things. When you're hopping around to all these locations that look very different from one another, I thought the cinematography did it so well, where it didn't feel like, well, this is just looks like a totally different movie now, you know?
Yeah,
It transitions perfectly smooth, because all that time spent on Themyscira is beautiful to look at. Mm-hmm. And the Amazon women, the Amazonians are amazing. Those are some awesome costume designs. The women are badass.
And a really diverse range of casting in a way that's not in your face. I just kind of found myself noticing, like, wow, there are all kinds of people in this movie.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's on Themyscira or Earth, you know?
Yeah, exactly, because they got real actors to do this. It was more than just, let's have them be two-dimensional Amazon badass chicks. You always understood the reasoning behind any of their decisions or any of their feelings behind anything that went on. The movie's not jam-packed with action.
And that's what I really like, because this movie, above all else, feels like a real movie. And what I mean by that is, like, it takes its time, and by the time it finally gets to the first, like, real Wonder Woman action sequence, it's rewarding. It's
you
like,
feel it.
Yeah.
You feel, yeah.
It's not like, oh, we have to get an action scene because that's what you guys want, right? It's like, it earns the action.
Because there's it's character buildup throughout everything. More than just Wonder Woman, it's all the other characters as well. The first big action scene is when Steve Trevor shows up, and then there's a fight that happens, the Amazonians and some soldiers, and that's a really well done action sequence. It's moving, it's effective, because you're like, oh, this whole time they've been no men in their world, and now men are showing up and they're destroying shit. You know?
Well, and that's the thing that makes the action all the more potent in this movie, is that there's more things going on than just, who do we have to fight? We're fighting, but also there are politics happening under this, because, you know, we're of different places, and as we get further into the movie, when we're on, you know, we're in regular Earth realm, everyone's got their own idea going on. Yeah. So you're kind of wondering how everyone's going to work together.
I can only think of like 3, maybe 4 big action sequences in the movie off the top of my head, because most of it is just character scenes. And some of my favorite scenes are just character scenes. Really quick, while we're on the topic of action, I gotta tell you, that whole sequence that you see in the trailer where she's on the battlefield and the bullets are flying at her, she has the shield. That movie earned that battle sequence so well that by the time she dons the outfit and is going on the battlefield, myself, and I noticed a lot of other people, started to tear up. I'm actually getting a little watery. I'm thinking about it again right now. I actually started tearing up because I was so moved by her decision to go on the battlefield when no one else was willing to do it.
Yeah.
It really earned that. And that's what I mean, is like the action supports the plot. The action supports the character.
Yeah, it's a
not just
real
cool.
film like that. And that was something that made me so happy inside, was I was sitting there, especially during that scene, going, see?
Yeah.
You did it. It works. It works. Yeah. You can do it. Wonderful.
And the choreography is so well done, because, you know, my brother pointed this out in his review, actually. I thought he made a really good point there, which was about how a lot of the times action movies have this like really handheld, supposed to make it more realistic. And what I loved here is the camera does move a lot, but you could always tell what's going on.
It's composed,
It's composed.
And there are some terrific, like Patty Jenkins, man, the way she shot that action is tremendous. Because there are some scenes where like those camera choices they're moving and they're enhancing the action, but you can see everything, and it's invigorating.
They're not all done the same, too. Not all the action scenes are the same way.
Yeah.
You could actually distinctly point out the differences from each one of them and say, this is what makes this one different from this one. They're not just like on repeat the entire time.
And you always care why they're fighting. It's never like, you know, in some of the previous movies, there are times where, again, if you don't have enough character moments and stuff, action gets boring, and I start to think like, okay, when are you guys going to be done punching each other so that something else can happen?
One thing that I've heard a lot of people make a nitpick about was the use of slow-mo, how they thought it was a little overused. I personally didn't feel that way. I thought like it earned all its slow-mo moments. There's a good amount of it. I still thought it was always cool when it was happening.
Yeah. I can see why you might say that. It just didn't really bother me.
No,
you know?
no.
I thought the moments they chose were cool. And being that this is a comic book movie, I thought all their frames were... I was like, oh yeah, that looks like a comic book panel. It looks like there would be a whoosh appear, you know, or a thwack or something.
I also loved how, in the action moments, how they would incorporate CGI in a great way. A lot of times when you see when the human beings are CGI, it's like they're CGI in one shot and then in another shot they're back to human.
Yeah.
What I loved was how they were able to blend it where like, oh, she might do this jump where she's CGI, but then, oh, she's in human form in the same shot.
Yeah.
I thought like it blended really well.
Yeah, they got pretty good composites going on.
Oh, totally.
I mean, there are times when I can tell, like, oh, I can kind of see what you probably did to stitch this all together. It seemed like they put a lot of effort into having things be on camera for real, you know? And there are certain things that get CG'd if you have to, but I didn't think it was way too much or anything that in this movie. I thought they used it correctly.
Well, let's go into the characters finally. Gal Gadot, man. I've said it before, I was doubtful when I first heard she was cast in as Wonder Woman. I was never bothered by her physical appearance. I never was, because I was like, Wonder Woman has super strength. It doesn't matter. Like,
well, yeah,
she doesn't need
also
to be buff to match that, you know? Like,
and I don't know, like, I understand on the one hand, but also, you know, there's such a thing as movie magic.
I believe it's more about performance.
We made John Rhys Davies, who's really tall, into a short dwarf in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
You can kind of do anything with at least physique.
Yeah, and Gal Gadot, her performance is so multi-layered in this film. She is far from one note. Every character quality is present in every moment. Man. She's a fully multi-layered dimensional character. From the sense of, yes, the warrior aspect is great there. You believe her when she's kicking ass. She pulls off the stunt work really well. The action sequences really well. Her determination, her faith, her hurt. The hurt. That was the big part of it. The hurt was a big part of her character. How she felt so much for the people. And I never thought of it in a cheesy way. I always believed she really cares about people.
Yeah, she makes you hurt for the cause, because that's the thing is, like, you know, and nowadays it's easier to feel that with the world the way it is, but, you know, you really feel like, man, the drive and passion of someone who just wants to help is a moving thing, you know, especially when the circumstances are overwhelming and hard to understand. It's
a passionate performance.
Definitely.
It's a passionate performance, and a sense of wonder when she's a fish out of water. In a lot of these scenarios is fantastic too. You know, she pulls off the comedy elements really well.
She has a really unified performance. Like, she really does feel like she had a fully developed character, and she brings so much charm and so much life to it.
Yeah,
you know?
She inspired me. She
did.
Inspired me. Yeah. You know, like, you want to be here. As a guy, I'm watching. I'm like, I want to be this person. You know.
Well, and on the same coin, Steve Trevor kind of did the same.
Chris Pine killed it.
Yeah, he
killed it.
That's the only way to describe it. He killed it in this movie. Like, and their chemistry, both as performers, but also in the script, is tremendous. Like, the interplay between Diana Prince and Steve Trevor is one of the best things about this movie. And a movie full of things that are great, you know, like, that is one of the best on-screen duos I've seen in a long time.
I don't know exactly what Steve Trevor is like in the comics per se when he first meets Diana. What I loved about the choice of the writing here was they didn't make him, what's the word? They didn't make him a womanizer.
They didn't make him Star-Lord.
In Star Trek, I think he's really funny. He's a little more energetic. More upbeat, you know. Here, he's more subtle, but he's still really funny, multi-layered. I love that his character is in such support and non-judgmental of who Diana is, and he's the last thing from being a womanizer. He's actually quite respectful and stands up for her and always has her back. But the relationship as it develops, like, obviously you could just see the trailers and see that it's developing into a romance. But I gotta tell you guys, the more it built, I just kept believing it. And as the romance kept going, I felt the love they were developing for each. I felt it.
Well, yeah, because they develop a relationship based off of both kind of intrigue and also respect over time.
Yeah,
because
and experience and
it's not just, gotta have a romance in this movie. Hey, Black Widow's in love with Bruce Banner now.
Yeah,
whatever.
It makes sense that they would start to develop strong feelings for each other.
Yeah, and it lets them both be right and wrong at different times. It lets them both have a point, and by the end of it, you naturally feel like, wow, after all you've been through, I can see what resonates between you guys and why you would actually care about each other.
Yeah, some of the best scenes are just them talking with each other.
And it sells those coincidence things, that much more. It's like, this is the guy who washed up on the beach, but it works.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a great scene where they end up talking about sex. There's a great scene where they're dancing. They're like... it's the moments where they just take time to let them talk with each other are some of the best moments in this movie.
Well, and that's what elevates these films, is when you allow the characters to have even just a little bit of life. You don't have to make it an indie drama, but, in a few minutes, you can have a really heartwarming scene that makes us care that much more about the plot you're concerned with.
I mean, there's other characters in there, too, that I thought were fantastic.
The supporting cast is great.
Robin Wright as General Antiope, which is the one who trains Diana. She's like the Diana's aunt in the movie. And she's not in the film for that long. Man, she's a standout character for a woman who doesn't really have that much screen time. She's one of the characters I thought about when the movie was done. She's a strong performance of a character that I don't really want to go into in a non-spoiler because she's barely in the film. But I can tell you guys, man, that's a powerful performance on her end.
Well, and Connie Nielsen is Queen Hippolytus as well. Hippolytus? Greek!
Hippopotamus?
Hippopotamus. My lyrics are bottomless.
Everyone's so multi-layered in this film.
Yeah.
No one is a one-dimensional performance. You get her mom's reasoning for why she doesn't want Diana to fight, why she will let Diana make certain decisions, why she will let her learn to train, why she won't let her train. Every single decision was very much understood. You could always feel that there was a full backstory behind every performance. Because a lot of credit goes to the screenwriting as well for this film.
The writing always varies in these, and I feel like this movie, again, finds a really perfect pitch between having a great cast who can bring the acting chops to put nuance under the words, but also, I feel like this is a pretty good example of good studio writing where, there is plot dialogue, but it is also immersed in an understanding of its characters.
Yeah.
So even if scenes are short and they're giving you information, you're also learning about how the characters feel, and they feel like real people because of that.
Absolutely.
It's easy to overlook that stuff in a superhero movie. That's one of the reasons why I was so upset about Batman vs. Superman, because none of those characters got to have character. Mm-hmm. And you need that if we're ever going to care, and this movie achieves that with flying colors. That's the best thing about this movie.
And Etta Kenny, the character, the one who's like Steve Trevor's secretary, she's awesome. She's hilarious. She's hilarious.
I always enjoy her, whether it's like
so
Shaun
funny.
of the Dead or Marin or this.
She's so funny, and I love her. I love her just admiration for Steve and her admiration for Diana when she meets her right away. Like, she wins you over in a heartbeat. It is so quick that she wins you over.
That first scene, I'm like, I want to watch a serial comic strip about the three of you.
The main villains that are being focused on in the film: Danny Houston as General Elric Ludendorff. He does a good job. I mean, I'm kind of used to this guy just being bad.
I think Danny Houston's a good actor, and I think he brings something to it. I'm kind of with you. It's not like, oh wow, I've never seen him do this before, but I think he does it well in this movie, and I liked watching him.
Yeah, and they did some different moments with them that enhanced. I mean, they are, out of any character to be kind of two-dimensional, that's not really fully multi-layered, it really is him. It was mainly the writing on him. They didn't really give him much to do to show multi-layered. He is kind of just bad German guy.
We kind of check in on him to remind us how evil and powerful he is, and then we check back to Wonder Woman.
And then the other villain, Elena Anaya, who plays Dr. Poison. I thought the writing of Dr. Poison, honestly, I only have a couple of nitpick issues with this film. I didn't really like her performance. If I'm going to be completely honest, I didn't really buy her.
Okay.
I could always see what she was going for, and I thought out of any of the characters that have the villains, I thought she had more layers to her, especially in later scenes in the movie, where you start seeing other aspects and qualities to her. However, I just didn't really believe her.
I guess I can see where you're coming from. I mean, I liked her performance. I always wanted a little bit more, I guess, is what I left her scenes with. Is I liked what I was getting, and I always hoped for a little bit more out of that. It didn't really affect me while I was watching the movie last night for the first time, but thinking back on it, both her and Danny Houston, I could have maybe used a little bit more on them. Just a little bit more nuance on them or something, because of all the characters, they're the ones who get to have evil plans and cackle about them.
Yeah. Also, the actor David Thewlis is in the film. If you haven't read any news reports on who David Thewlis is playing, don't. Just don't. It totally ruins the movie for you.
Yeah, it ruins an important part of how the story unfolds, and I have no idea what they were thinking.
Yeah, in terms of releasing that as an announcement. Yeah.
I feel like they announced that, and whoever did that just didn't read the script.
Yeah, exactly. The team that forms when Steve Trevor and Wonder Woman are going to go to the front to be able to fight the Germans and take down the general. The team that forms is really good. We'll go more into them in the spoiler review of who they are. They have the character Samir, who's the master of disguise. You got Charlie, the heavy drinking Scottish guy, the sharpshooter,
the sniper guy. From Trainspotting.
You get the Native American guy, Chief.
Yeah.
And the whole team there is really good too.
And that's the thing, is like, this is a pretty diverse movie in a way that is not, at least to me, wasn't just in your face about it. Just like after a while I was like, oh wow, this is a diverse cast, and I only picked up on it like part way through.
Yeah, or it's not in your face that they're making
just it just seems like this is the team.
Yeah.
Great. I understand why you're all here. You've all got a personality. Like, I enjoy watching all of you.
Absolutely. You brought this up when we were just hearing about Rotten Tomatoes giving it a high score. How she's been very public, Patty Jenkins, about saying her main inspiration for this was the themes of Superman, Richard Donner's movie. And she succeeds in that. She greatly succeeds in that, and the whole vibe of it, because you do get all this sense of heroism and inspiration that you don't really feel in superhero movies anymore.
Yeah, you get the themes that arguably you're supposed to have. I feel like we've lost a lot to being gritty and anti-heroes, but I feel like you can do that without losing all these things still.
And the other thing too, the finale, that I'm sure you've heard a lot of people say how it gets really CGI heavy and it falls under some typical comic book territory where it gets all big and crazy all of a sudden and expositional and reveals. And while that's there, it's definitely there. I wouldn't say the film didn't lose me though.
The film, by the time the big finale comes, the film has done so many great things that at that point, it's fine. But it's
even in the finale though, there's still great action moments. There's still great character moments. I still cried at something that happens in the finale during the big shit.
While I do think DC in each of their movies kind of has demonstrated this problem of when you get to the big finale fight, the action and the physics of everything are so much bigger than the rest of the movie. Man of Steel was like that, BVS is like that, Suicide Squad is like that. This movie has the least of that, but I kind of agree with what you said. It's like, I feel like the third act could have been a bit smoother with just an extra scene, between her and the big bad, just to kind of help it to feel a little less like it kind of ramped up the action all of a sudden. But yeah, like you said, there's some great stuff in that scene. I like the designs that they went with. It's still rewarding.
And even though it's huge and big and a little CGI distracting, there's still some really cool stuff that happens in that fight though.
And there's also meaningful stuff going on at the same time.
Exactly. That's why I was still moved in the finale and still cried at certain parts in the finale.
Yeah, the movie never just takes a break from being a movie to kicking ass,
Yeah.
That's kind of a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's like, while I had to jam-pack a certain amount into that finale, it still didn't feel like you're rushing now.
This movie has similarities to other superhero movies. You'll think of, maybe the first Avenger, you might think of Thor, you might think of
Superman.
Yeah, Superman. But the thing is, like I said before, the heart and nuances of this movie are all its own. So even if certain plot elements are reminiscent, every one of these movies has those, unless you're talking about maybe like a Logan or a Dark Knight, where they're not trying to make this specific kind of superhero movie.
Yeah.
But as far as this kind of, swords and spandex goes, I think they did a beautiful job of demonstrating the fact that you can have all that fun stuff and also make a real movie out of it.
And there's very little Justice League universe tie-ins into this film, very little. And we'll go into it in the spoiler review.
Yeah.
But in this movie, I love how by the time when they had the tie-in, because at first when the tie-in's happening, you're like, oh, there it is. But then when it comes back, it's like meaningful. Yeah. And it supports the whole story we just watched. It makes it impactful.
The first time the tie-in popped up, that was kind of my least favorite thing. And then, yeah, it sort of...
But when it comes back, it works really well.
Earn itself. Yeah, I was like, okay, this is sort of fitting. And I do appreciate, especially on the heels of something like Batman v Superman, where it was clear to me that they're not focused so much on this movie as they are focused on the next movie. That's how they treated everything. This movie makes the smart choice of focusing on this movie and this character and making sure we do everything right now and we don't have to fix it later.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what you should do. If you're going to spend that much money on a movie like this, you need to do that.
Yeah, this movie was one of the best superhero movies I've seen in a very long time.
Definitely.
And definitely one of the best comic book movies ever. I would give it, if I give it, 5 out of 5 Gregs.
Dude, I had like tears in my eyes for most of this movie.
Yeah, John was crying a lot. I cried 2 times when I heard John sniffling like a lot.
Just most of the movie, like honestly, like especially just kind of the whole first act and like, the no man's land.
The second and third act. Yeah.
Took a few breaks to laugh. Yeah. So yeah, I give this 600 Johns and 10 golden lassos of truth.
All right, well you can subscribe to The Real Rejects. Click that notification bell. That's Sean Humphrey on Twitter and Instagram. Go check out our Patreon for all of exclusive goodies and exclusive, fun, random video content over there.
Yeah,
and keep a lookout for our spoiler video, which we'll green screen something for that one.
Yeah,
we'll change with the background, make it a little more interesting.